Hi guys, it's Belle here, and I am back for another monthly reading wrap up, this time for the month of April. I know we're already into May, guys. It has been a time. So I'm just going to do the backs, put some backs on some of these journaling cards that I have kind of collaged. And just like last month, I'm going to split this into sections according to the format I read the books in. I read 14 books in April. If this is the first time you've seen one of my reading wrap-ups, firstly, there's a couple more on my channel you can go check out if you enjoy it. And secondly, they tend to be long, so please do get yourself a drink and a snack and join me as I talk about books. So April was a bit of a strange month. I did read 14 books, but I also DNF'd, which is did not finish, about 3 books, which is great because it gets them off my TBR, but some of them I was really looking forward to. And also the caliber of books that I read, the kind of weren't brilliant. Yeah, it was a bit disappointing because of all of that. I just want the back done because I'm going to do something with some of these. So let's start, as I did last time, with audiobooks. I listened to 3 audiobooks this month in completion. I do sometimes do what's called kind of tandem reading or dual reading, where I will be reading and also listening to a book on audio, because it just means that I can keep listening to it whatever I am doing. But these books I read completely as audiobooks. So the first one was Letters from the Ginza Shihodo Stationary Shop by Kenji Ueda. As always, I'll leave an image of the book on the actual video. And this was so sweet, guys. I really love these Japanese translated books. They're just a slice of life. They remind me of John Hughes movies. You kind of see the characters in that brief instance, and then that's kind of it. And this one I gave 4 stars. It is all about a stationery shop, funny enough, and the guy who runs it, he has this little table upstairs where you can write your letter. And the book itself was split into several short stories, which some of them actually linked up, and each person is going to this stationery shop to either write a letter or to buy a gift or to pick up some paper or something. And we kind of get to see each of these people and a snapshot of their life, that they are maybe struggling with something. And do you know what? It was really just really sweet and heartwarming. It was everything I was hoping it was going to be. And I actually did get a little bit emotional, especially at the first story, which is about a young man who's been raised by his grandmother, and he's away from home now, and he's struggling a little bit with that. And his grandmother, he goes to write the letter, and it's all just going to be normal stuff. And then he kind of reminisces on his time and growing up with her, and he basically just tells her about all these memories and how much he's grateful for her and all. It was just such a sweet story. We have a young girl who's handing in a resignation letter to a boss that she really loves from a job that she really loves, but it's time to move on. We just have all these, I think there's about 4 or 5 different characters who go to this stationery shop. But do you know the best thing about the actual story, other than it was sweet and just a little slice of life? It was the descriptions of the stationery shop and the things that the gentleman sold there. I mean, it went into so many descriptions of paper and the different kinds of paper, and even about like pens. And if you're into stationery, happy mail, letter writing, and you just like a slow, gentle book, this will be one that I highly recommend you check out. Yeah, it was just really sweet, and I'm really glad I listened to that one. Then we'll go to the audiobook that I liked least, and that is the second book in the Baker Street Cozy Mystery series. I started this one, I think, last month, and this was called Murder is a Piece of Cake. Again, it'll be up here. We have by Valerie Burns. We have Maddie, who has inherited her great aunt Octavia's baking shop and dog called Baby. And in the first book, we meet Maddie, and she's definitely a different kind of main female character. She's more concerned with shoes, hairstyles and clothes and designer labels than she is with anything else. But we saw her in the first book kind of start settling into this new role in the bakery and with her aunt's friends, who have now become her friends, and they are the Baker Street Irregulars, named after Sherlock Holmes. He had his Baker Street Irregulars as well. And in this one, Maddie is trying to... There's a festival in town. It is the Spring Baking Festival in New Bison, Michigan, and she is taking part. She's also got the bakery up and running again after the last book, and she's starting to sell classes. She can't bake, but she's also really good at social media. This is a book that is full of hashtags, like nearly every other word is a hashtag. I didn't mind that in the first book. And so Maddie's kind of building up her social media presence with the baking shop, which is really taking off. And then all of a sudden she's trying to get ready for the bakery and work out what she's going to do for it, the festival. And then CJ Davenport turns up, and he has a link to one of the other characters that is in the books. And, you know, they have a history, and it's not a great one. And he turns up and says not only is he opening a bakery just down the road, but he's flying in a top patissier chef from Belgium. Now, Maddie, this is a very small town, so it doesn't really need more than one bakery. And then next thing you know, CJ turns up dead, and obviously Maddie and her friends are then the prime suspects, and we go from there. Now, unfortunately, I've decided to no longer continue with this series. I really enjoyed the first book, but there were problems with pacing, and there was definitely a problem with the murder and the mystery and how it all ended. And in this one, the murder from the last book, there's still a mystery surrounding part of that, and there is a link to this book, the second book in the series. And also there's still the unsolved mystery of her great aunt's passing, which may or may not have been murder. But yeah, I've decided I don't really like the characters enough. I've read some reviews that also there's a character with dementia in these books, and I've read reviews saying that that character dementia is not dealt with in a very realistic way. I can't say whether it is or not, but it's starting to feel a bit unrealistic, if you know. Listen to both on audio. And in this book, I really noticed there was repetition, but it was needless repetition. So she'll say something like, Michael must have been coming up the driveway because Baby started barking. Michael must be coming up the driveway, so I'll go and open the door. Literally one line after the next line. There were inconsistencies in the story. Like, I don't see why you're repeating words. I reckon the whole thing could have been half an hour shorter if all the repetitions were removed. The writing, it's just poor writing, and whoever has written it has not edited it very well, and it just got frustrating. It was taking me out of the story. There were inconsistencies with another character that was in the story. Like, they said, oh, she's always loved this sweet potato pie, so I'll take it along because I know then she'll talk. And then literally in the next line, Maddie goes, well, I hope this sweet potato pie will help her talk. Do you think it's going to? Well, the character just told, like, that got a 2.75, and I will no longer be continuing with that series, which is a real shame because I was really enjoying it from the first book. And then the last audiobook that I want to talk to you about is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. Please be aware that this is a horror book. I don't tend to read or watch horror, but I do love Grady Hendrix books. I've read 2 of his books before. I love his sense of humour, and this I ended up giving a 4. Please be aware if you're going to pick this up, there is major trigger warnings throughout this whole book. And this is set in 1970s Florida at a place called Wellwood House, which is a home for young girls, young unmarried mothers who, you know, are pregnant, and they get taken there. And we are following a group of 4 girls in particular. When the girls get to the house, they're told they're going to be renamed and they're not to tell anyone else about their actual life or anything like that, because it's, you know, you come here, you have your baby, you leave, and you don't want anyone knowing your shame, so to speak. And so the main character gets renamed Fern. She doesn't know she's going there. Her dad drops her off one morning and just leaves her there. And the girls that we get to know range from 14 to about 20, 19, 20, and Fern's about 16, 17. And yeah, they get taken to this home. So we are following Fern, Rose, Zinnia and Holly. And you know, basically in this home, none of the adults can be relied on to be trusted or to really have the girls' best interests at heart. They're all told they're going to give up their babies, whether they want to or not. And, you know, then nothing's explained to them. There's a social worker there who's meant to be like a modern woman and, yeah, I'm really down with the kids and know all the lingo and all that. And even she, when the girls are saying, but what is it like to give birth? They're all going, it's nothing, it's fine. You just kind of lie there and next thing you know, there's a baby. And they're not being truthful with them. But these girls, they're suffering, they're stressed, you know, they've got all these mixed emotions. And a library van comes once a fortnight or something, and the girls are checking out books, and one of the books is on witchcraft, and the librarian gives it to them, and we go from there, where they start kind of reading the book, and we go from there. Now, I did really enjoy this. That it was a quick read. I could not put the book down on audio. Some of it, I didn't find this horror. I agree with other reviews I've read. There are some horror elements. I think some of the horror elements are to do with, there are triggers for childbirth and all that kind of thing. And I know a lot of people found those quite disturbing. There were a few incidences where, yeah, I kind of cringed and fast forwarded a little bit. But the real horror is the fact that these kind of things happen to these girls. I'm reminded, especially being Irish, of the Magdalene laundries back home and things like that. And Grady Hendrix did say that as an unmarried older gentleman with no children, this is a strange book for him to write, but he's written it because there are women in his life that he has loved and grown up with who he recently found out that this was something they've experienced, you know, unmarried mothers and having to give their children up, and it inspired him to write it. And I have to say, I don't read a lot of male authors, especially if they are writing from female points of view, but Grady Hendrix manages to do it, I think, really well. Other people may disagree. I think he writes really well. There are some issues with this book, which is why it got a 4. And one of the big issues for me was I just wasn't connected to Fern, and she's our main character. I didn't really like her. I wasn't invested in her storyline. I was much more invested in Rose and especially Holly's storyline. So yeah, it's worth picking up. I enjoyed it. Did give it a 4. It is a horror book, please be aware. But if you like Grady Hendrix, I know there's light across here. I'm sorry about all the shadows and everything, but it's this time of day. We're getting sunlight, which is lovely. So yeah, that's worth picking up. Now we'll go to the ebooks that I read. I only read 2. The first one I read was To Fudge or Not to Fudge by Nancy Coco, which is the second book in the Fudge Shop Mysteries. This is set on Mackinac Island, which is apparently a real island in America, the States. And we are following Ali, and it is the Lilac Festival in town. And she is walking her dog one day, and all the lilacs are out, and her dog ends up digging up some bones under one of the lilacs. And this happens a couple of times. And so, you know, they're investigating that. Ali owns a fudge shop. She's inherited it from her grandfather. And she's trying to settle in and get it going. And then whilst all this is going on, these bones are turning up in the compost under the lilacs. An old mentor of hers, a chef, comes to town. He's part of a fudge reality cooking show, and he wants Ali to take part. And she's like, I really don't have time. I'm trying to do the fudge. It's one of our busiest times a year. And he's like, it's fine. This will be really good for you and good publicity. So he talks her into it. And when Ali gets there, she realizes that reality TV is very different to what we obviously see, and it's much more scripted and everything. And suddenly someone turns up dead, and then the next thing you know, her mentor is also attacked. So Ali decides she's going to investigate, as she does, all these different things, whilst also hoping she gets kicked off the fudge show. And the person who was found dead on the show was actually eating Ali's fudge as part of the competition, the thing she'd made that day, and Ali was the last person to see her alive. So obviously Ali's prime suspect, and yeah, we go from there in the book where Ali's trying to solve all these different mysteries. And so I gave this, again, about a 2.75. I'm going to give this series one more try. This is another one that I only just started last month, and I really enjoyed the first book, but I have to say that this second book I didn't like. I liked the reality TV kind of side of it, but I feel like the mystery was a little far-fetched. The person committing the murders really does not seem realistic. And I also didn't like the portrayal of how two characters in the book were portrayed. Yeah, I didn't like the character arc that the author decided to take for them, especially as they were the only characters like that. So it's just like, I'm a bit uncomfortable with that. There was also a lot of repetition. Now, I listened to this last time on audio, and this time I read it on ebook, so I don't know if I was missing out on the repetition in the last book or not. But yes, there again, we had the same problem kind of that we had with, not as badly, but the same problem as with Baker Street Shop. And I just decided that I'm going to give this one more go, and then we'll see how we go from there. But yes, anyway, it's a fun little book. There's lots of fudge recipes. If you like fudge, these are the books to pick up, because it's almost like a fudge recipe book. It's so good. So the last book I read on ebook was called A Poisoner's Tale by Cathryn Kemp. This I gave 3.75. This is loosely based. It's a fictionalized account of an actual person. And we are in Rome in 1650s, and we are following Giulia Tofano, who is considered the world's first, if not the most prolific female serial killer. And I don't mean that, you know, she didn't go around murdering people, but she had a poison called Tofano, and it was a clear liquid. And what she did was, women who were in difficult situations with the men in their life, they could come to her and she would give them this poison to help them get out of the situation they were in. If you have been reading my Pies Before Guys recommendation book, imagine this as a real life version of Daisy from those books, except that she's not putting it in pies. She gives them the liquid and then the people go home, and if they decide to use it, you know, they can put it in whatever. And it is thought, we start the book right at the beginning. We know that her and several of her friends and her daughter have been found guilty and are about to hang. And we know this right from the beginning. Also, historically, you know this, but right at the beginning, the first chapter, you find that out. And then from there, we go backwards to Palermo in maybe the 1630s, where her mother, who was a certain kind of lady, had a certain job, originally kind of working for the King of Spain in his brothel, marries this richer, older gentleman who is very esteemed and high, you know, plays a role in the church and things. And at this point, Julia is about 8, 9 when originally her mother marries. And things go from there. It's not a very happy childhood. And at one point, again, you know this from, I think, the blurb, her mother gets found guilty of witchcraft. And Julia is left at about the age of 13, 14, trying to escape Palermo and working out what's going to go on with her life. So we see her in Palermo, we get to the point where she leaves, and then we flash forward into 1651 or 1650s Rome. And at this point in Rome, there is a new pope and there is a plague starting. And we are also getting witch trials across the world, and a new inquisitor comes to Rome to work with the pope. And from there, you know, they start realizing that there are people dying, men dying, which offends their sensibilities. There are men dying, but they are not showing any symptoms of the plague. And in fact, they're not showing any symptoms at all. They're dying mysteriously. And they start to realize this could be witchcraft. And we go from there as they're trying to hunt Julia down and the decision she makes. Now, I gave this a 3.75 because I really enjoyed finding out. I'd never heard of Julia Tofano and Aqua Tofano and any of that. I hadn't heard of any of that, and I've gone and looked into her since. So we find out more about that. Hold on. Sorry, I know that's a bit darker, but the shadow really was getting quite bad. Thank goodness this isn't a proper crafting video. It's just book one. We get to know more about Julia and the people around her and all that kind of thing. Now, my main problems with this book were, one, I did not feel connected to Julia or any of her friends, not even her daughter. I mean, her daughter's older. She's in her 20s or late teens, early 20s. I didn't feel connected to any of them. I found the story very interesting, but I just had no emotional connection, which is always a shame because this is a book dealing with quite a hard-hitting subject, and please be aware there is a lot of trigger warnings for this book. So I didn't feel connected to any of them. I also had an issue. Look, I read a lot of feminist books and I enjoy feminist books, but this was hit you over the head with feminism. And I felt like the author was voicing her opinion, which again, I don't have a problem with, but over voicing it. I didn't feel like this was really Julia feeling this way. I really felt like this was a modern woman, the author, speaking. And there was too much of that. There was too much of Julia reflecting on women's role in society and how women are always prisoners, whether they're married or not. And, you know, there was just too much. And some would be great. And I understand why she was making the poison. And that must have been the reasoning for the original Julia Tofano as well. Obviously, we don't know. And the other issue I had, for some reason, halfway through the book, we start hearing, we had chapters from the Pope's point of view, and I didn't need to hear about the Pope's point of view. And there was like this weird subplot that, to me, obviously it's a fictionalized account, but it didn't need to be there. We could have just heard about Julia. And I would have liked to know more what happened between the time she left Palermo to where she opened her apothecary in Rome. So anyway, if you are interested in that, if that sounds interesting, it's a historical, a fictional historical based, as I said, on a real person. It's thought that Julia's mother obviously also had aqua Tofano, but it's thought that maybe it might have been something passed down through the families. But we don't know much about Julia. You know, there's not a lot of evidence left. But anyway, that was a really interesting read and I did enjoy it. So let me just clear all of this up and then we'll get on to the actual physical books that I read. So let's start with this one. I really was in a bit of a funk, I think, in April. Not only a crafting slump, you know, lacking crafty mojo, but I was also in a bit of a reading slump. And normally when I'm feeling that way, I'll pick up a middle grade because they're just quick and easy. And there's some really great middle grades out there these days. So this is Stickleback Catchers by the wonderful Lisette Orton. She has another book out called The Haven Point Lighthouse, or The Secret of Haven Point, but it is a lighthouse on the front. Lisette Orton does diversity brilliantly. The children in her books are neurodivergent or have different disabilities, and in this one in particular we're dealing with a young girl on crutches who definitely seems to be autistic coded. We're dealing with a non-binary character, and we are dealing with a young child who a young girl who definitely can't deal with sensory. She likes to stay in her room, curtains have to be closed, she wears ear defenders, glasses, all that kind of thing. And Lisette has made executive decision with this book that she has not told anyone what the children's disabilities are, because as she says on language right at the back, she said, I made a deliberate choice not to name the impairments and conditions. This is because lots of disabled and neurodivergent people spend a lot of time being medicalised and also getting asked what is wrong with you. So I love that. Her other book is also full of diversity with neurodivergence, disabled rep and all that. So if you do have young people in your life, these books are brilliant. I just love them. This one, however, I only gave 3.5. I loved The Secret of Haven Point much more. Unfortunately, I didn't feel that connected to these three characters. We have, what's her name? This Mimi. Mimi's about 11, 12, and her gran is showing signs of early onset dementia, and it's quite quick, it's quite fast. So again, trigger warnings in these books. And Mimi is trying to find a way to save her nan, and she sees there's cracks all around, there's talking crows, there is a real kind of magical realism in this. And they're also trying to get into this bottle factory that her granddad used to work in years ago. Her grandparents are her primary carers, so with everything going on, Mimi is feeling very, very unsettled. Routine is out, and her gran, who she loves dearly, is acting very strangely. And so her gran actually puts an advert in the paper asking for other people who might want to do sticklebacking and catching and all that. I used to love watching sticklebacks when I was a kid, so it brought back some memories of that for me. And so we meet these other characters, and there is this mystery of this bottle factory and these talking crows and the cracks, and also the, you know, sad journey of what's going on with Mimi and her gran. And so we sort of follow these young people and this story, and obviously we know there's going to be no cure, but it's all about Mimi's journey with all of that. I just didn't feel connected to the characters. I loved the story. This has some hard-hitting topics for younger readers, so please, if you are going to give it to a younger reader, maybe read it yourself first and see if that's something you feel like the young person in your life would be able to be okay with. It definitely raises certain questions, but it's also very touching. There's a lot of found family in this, and a wonderful community feel, a little bit of a mystery, a little bit of magicalism, and all of that. I just wasn't that connected to the characters the way I was with Haven Point, but this is a great book. So yes, do pick this up. And isn't it just a beautiful cover with the gold? I mean, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. The next book I want to talk to you about is Old Rage by Sheila Hancock. This is a non-fiction. If you do not know, Sheila Hancock here in the UK is a very famous and well-known actress. She's been on TV since the 1960s and was acting before that. She was also the wife of the wonderful John Thor, who played Inspector Morse. And this book, she started it in 2016 when she was in her 80s, and it ends in 2022. And it actually says, in 2016, Sheila Hancock sat down to write a book about a serene and fulfilled old age. This is not that book. She's in her 80s when she's writing this book, and she talks, there's a lot of political talk in here. There's a lot of talk about the class divide within the UK and how Sheila always classed herself as working class, but now she's more sort of middle class, and how she deals with that kind of thing. There's the class system, there's education, Brexit gets spoken about. Religion gets spoken about a little bit in here because Sheila in later life has become a Quaker. There's a lot about Europe and immigration and just community at large. And then what I wasn't expecting, and I think I should have been, but I wasn't expecting it to go up to 2022. We also have a huge chunk of the book that takes part during the pandemic, which is a big trigger for me. So I wasn't expecting that, and I struggled with that. For the rest of the book, she sort of does it by month. So like March 2016, May to June 2016. When we get to the pandemic, she starts doing it almost day by day or week by week, and I struggled with that. But I absolutely love her. She is a feisty woman, and I agree with many of her political sort of leaning she talks a lot about. And I also find her fascinating because we often say for certain people's beliefs that, oh, well, it's a generational thing, they're of a certain age. She grew up at the end of the Second World War. She was an evacuee at one point as a child. You know, she remembers playing in the rubble of the Blitz in London and things like that. And yet her views are much more in leaning with what you would consider more modern sort of left-wing views. And yeah, it just goes to show it's not to do with age, it's to do with community and all that kind of thing. Anyway, yeah, it's a really good book. If I was to rate it, I'd give it a 3.75. I love Sheila. I loved her rants. I found them funny. I also love the fact she's passionate. She's also dealing with health issues because she's getting older and what that means for her and how her life is going to change. And that was really interesting as well. She talks a lot about her husband who'd been gone maybe 15, 20 years by the time she wrote this book, and just the loss of that. And being a widow, especially during the pandemic when she was by herself. Fascinating book. I felt like one of the things I didn't enjoy so much, and it's a me thing, not a Sheila thing, she was talking about a lot of older actors from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s that I don't know, especially if they're on stage. And unfortunately, therefore, a lot of her antidotes, no, you know, her little bits of wisdom, her little stories. What are words today? I couldn't relate to them very well, but yeah, it was a fascinating read. So pick that up if that sounds interesting to you. Now, another non-fiction that was very disappointing. This was one of my books to read each day. This was Rewald Yourself, 23 Spellbinding Ways to Make Nature More Visible by Simon Barnes. I gave this, where is it? A 2.5. Now, this confused me, this book. This is written for adults in how to connect more with nature around you. It sounds like, and it has been written like in some ways, because it is so simplistic and in some cases a bit patronizing. It sounds like it's been written for children, but it absolutely hasn't been written for children at all. It's been written for adults. It goes on to different sections. We've got a bit about buddleia tree, about buying waterproof trousers, about the different snakes in England, and things like that, and reptiles, about how to sit, you know, simple things. I found some interesting information, which is why it's got a 2.5. I found a little bit interesting. I definitely was interested in how many butterflies are native to Britain and how you can make like a moth light box and things like that. So that interested me, but I just didn't like his writing style. It didn't sit well with me. It really didn't help when quite early on he used a kind of saying that his father often used, which I found particularly sexist, and it really didn't need to be in this book. This book was written in, well, this was published in 2020, so written about 2018, published 2020, I don't know, it says on there. And so that shouldn't have been in there at all. It didn't endear me to him. It actually immediately kind of made me a bit defensive. So the rest of what I was reading, I was already on high alert for anything that he was saying. Also, we get to the bit about binoculars, and I understand that he uses binoculars, and so the term that people who use them a lot might call them bins. Every other word in that chapter. Oh, my bins. I'm wearing my bins. I wear my bins this low. Don't forget to grab your bins. You need a good set of bins. Always take your bins with you. Have your bins nearby, please. Have you? And I just thought, I get it. I get that's what you call them, but can you stop every other word? I'm not going, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. That's so cool. Oh, I'm really with you. I was just like, you're irritating me now. I also I thought this book was going to be something that it wasn't. I am already someone who is very in tune with nature. It's a big part of my daily life. And so I was looking for new things that could make me even more in tune with nature. This is definitely for someone who may never have shown an interest in nature ever before. And suddenly goes, oh, this is interesting that there's this butterfly, because he's like, once you see a butterfly, you'll see them everywhere. Well, I do. It's part of what I do. Like, I'm always getting distracted by, oh, look at that bird, look at that butterfly, walking and stuff. Just normally, just down the road. There wasn't a lot in here for me. There were a few chapters I found interesting, particularly about bats and moths, that I will be sort of taking forward. And there was also things like, oh yeah, it's great. You can buy an inflatable canoe for £100 and, then go canoeing. And I'm just thinking, it's not simple. These aren't easy ways. People aren't going around spending £100, £200 on a pair of binoculars, or £100 on an inflatable canoe, or like £200 on a bat radar machine. I would think if you were going to do that, you would already be really invested in that as part of your niche nature hobby. Really, yeah, this is mainly based in England and English countryside, but every so often he'll start talking about Africa or somewhere and tell you some story about himself that I felt was kind of like, oh, look at me and what I've done. I don't know. I didn't get on with this book. This will not be staying in my collection. But if you are interested in some basic information and how you connect more with nature around you, especially if you're in the UK, then I definitely suggest maybe giving it a read and seeing how you feel. Another book that was a fail. This was another one that I was reading every day. If you remember, last month I did that with the Irish fairy tales, and I said I was going to go through my collection of short stories to do with fairy tales and mythology. One a month, read one a day, one of the short stories. This is the Grimm's fairy tales in this absolutely stunning cloth-bound puffin edition. I gave this 1.5, guys, and it got 1.5 for the cover. That's what it got 1.5 for. I have not reread the original Grimm's fairy tales in a long, long time, and I know there are problems with some of them. This is them in their original format. And what can I say about this? I have realised I probably won't be rereading the Grimm's fairy tales again anytime soon. They are full of stereotypes, particularly for women. They are misogynistic. They are patronising. They are... there is a lot that happens to animals in here that is completely unnecessary, and I'd forgotten all about the animals. I mean, it's annoying enough when a woman's either a beautiful princess or a nagging wife or an evil witch, and they're the only three things a woman can be, and women have no say in who they marry. You know, a guy suddenly goes, oh, I saw this beautiful woman, I fell in love with her. Well, you didn't fall in love. That's not love. And now you will be my wife. And she just goes, okay, that was bad enough. But the cruelty in here, both to people and to animals, is unacceptable and not something I want to read anymore, and I'm not going to go on about that one any further. This copy will be staying in my collection because look at that cover. And you know, I can't have a selection of fairy tales because I have a shelf for fairy tales because it's one of my favorite things to read about, the originals and retellings, without having a copy of this. But I actually had another absolutely stunning Grimm's fairy tale collection, and that one's going. This one will stay, but I suggest if you want to read fairy tales, maybe Grimm's fairy tales aren't the ones to do that with. Then I read Raising Steam. This is book 40 in the Terry Pratchett. I have this beautiful edition. I picked it up secondhand, but look, it still has the original kind of ticket thing. It's Waterstones exclusive. So this is Raising Steam. It is book 40 in the Discworld. I have one more book to go, guys. And we're in May and I still haven't been able to pick it up yet because I'm feeling feels about the end of the Discworld. Oh, it's really breaking my heart. And what really breaks my heart is by this book, I think you can really tell that Terry Pratchett was very ill by this point. And sadly, that makes this one of my least favourite books in the whole of the Discworld. This I only gave a 3. Basically, the trains have come to Ankh-Morpork and the Discworld. There wasn't trains beforehand. And we have, what's his name? Mr. Simnel, the Mount Whip Flat Cap and Slide in Rule. They've made him very northern. It actually says Whip Flat Cap, as you would say it. He creates this steam train. He comes to Ankh-Morpork with it. The patrician veterinary is worried about how this is going to affect not only Ankh-Morpork, but the surrounding area. Everyone's a little suspicious. And so he gives Moist von Lipwig the task of seeing what's going to happen and keeping veterinary up to date. Now, Moist, we meet originally in Going Postal. So if you've seen that on TV, he's the main character in that. And then we meet him again in the book Making Money. So first he's put in charge of the post office. He is a bit of a criminal, and veterinary had given him the choice. You can go to the gallows or you can take the job that I'm offering you, because basically it's almost saying only a criminal could run the post office or the bank, because you can then work out how other people are going to try and like defraud it. So Moist is always under observation from veterinary. He's always having little chats with the patrician, where the patrician makes sure that Moist understands that he is there because veterinary wants him to be. And so veterinary says, the post office is working great now. The bank is working great. You have nothing really to do. I need you to go and monitor what's happening with the railway. And we go from there. We have the goblins in it again, which we had in the last Sam Vimes books. They're becoming part of society now, which is, I love to see that, a story taken and brought on. But I just found this whole book really boring. I wasn't invested in the railway story. It's not something... Yeah, it was just not something I was that invested in. It had Moist in it. He's not one of my favourite characters. We did have a little bit of veterinary, which was great. And Sam Fimes and the guards crop up a little bit, which is great, but not enough. And normally I laugh out loud repeatedly with Terry Pratchett books. I don't think I laughed once with this one. I listened to it dual on audio and read it. I love the audio books. If you want to pick up the Discworld books but are a bit intimidated, try the audio books. They are brilliantly narrated. I have all of the Discworld both on books and on audio books because that's how much I love them. Yeah, there's a whole plot. The dwarfs, a certain section of the dwarfs are trying to bring down certain things. So there's this whole kind of sub-political plot. But unfortunately, that just wasn't a book I enjoyed. And it makes me sad because it was the second to last book in the Discworld. So this is Hera by Jennifer Saint. It's the 4th book in her Greek myth feminist supposedly retellings. The cover of this, guys, look at that. It's gold foiling. It is stunning. They look beautiful in a bookcase. I can't, you can't not love the book covers. She's done Electra, Ariadne and Atalantia. Now, I was really interested when she said she was going to tackle Hera, because if you know anything about Greek mythology, Hera is the sister and wife of Zeus. She's one of the original Olympians, and she likes to plot revenge on the women that Zeus decides he has a romantic interest with. Let's put it as nicely as we can. Again, if you know anything about Zeus, you'll know what I'm talking about. And instead of saying to her husband, what are you doing? She instead goes, oh, I'm going to punish you, you, and your children. And I was really hoping. Now, Jennifer Saint says she does feminist retellings. I've read her previous books, and I would not say they're very feminist. My favourite book of hers is Atalantia. I think that's the best version of the most feminist out of all her retellings. And I really wanted to see what she would do with Hera, who is a fundamentally unlikable character. And we start right at the beginning when Hera and her siblings and some of the Titans are fighting against their father Kronos, who had swallowed his children whole. And they're fighting him and his brothers and other Titans. And there is this battle going on. And we meet a young Hera on the battlefield with her spear, and I was like, oh yes, I love this version of Hera. Like this, she had this inner calm and peace that I was really surprised by. And I loved those descriptions. She was in nature. She loved to be in nature. We get to see her and her siblings as they settle into this new world where the Titans are now in Tartarus, and they have this new world to themselves. And we follow as things progress, and Zeus then begins to create mortals. And Hera has no interest in mortals at all. She doesn't care about humans. And this is where things start to go wrong. And so we follow from the beginnings of the Olympians' time through the creation of mortals all the way up to the Trojan War, and just past that with kind of the fall of Olympus. And it is a long span of time to cover, which means I felt like we were getting rushed from one bit to another. Here's this bit, and I wasn't feeling connected. Also, I just don't like Hera. I didn't think anything in this book I could understand her frustration and her anger at her husband and some of the other male gods, and at the role she has been forced into. She did not choose, in this book, she did not choose, one, to be his wife, and two, to be the goddess of like marriage or anything like this. And, you know, she says a lot of the time how it's almost, she's a laughing stock because her own husband can't stay faithful, but she's the goddess of marriage. And we watch as she struggles with these emotions, and she keeps plotting these revenge plots against Zeus and Mount Olympus, and every one of them fail. You know, that's not a shock. That's just part of Greek mythology. And she just becomes this very bitter woman. And I get it. I can understand it to some degree, but she is so unlikable as a character. And there are other goddesses around her who are also going through things, who, I don't know, they're just much more like Hestia, her sister Hestia, goddess of the hearth. She's barely in the book. And when we do see her, she's always sitting by a giant fire in Olympus for like the majority of the book. And yet I felt more connection to Hestia than I did to Hera. Every line that Hestia was speaking, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, she has so much personality. She's so well-rounded. And Hera just was not at all. I wanted to feel sorry for Hera, but she was just constantly punishing other women for her husband's bad behavior. And it was just like, there's nothing that Jennifer Saint has put in this book that's made me look at Hera in any other way other than to really confirm how much this goddess is one I have never really understood or felt a connection to. So yeah, it got 3.5. I quite like Jennifer Saint's writing. It's quite easy to read, like you fly through her books even though they're chunky. And I love the Greek myth retellings. I love the fact that we had Troy in this one, which is one of my favorite things to kind of read about. I loved seeing Demeter in it. She's one of my favorite goddesses. I just loved all that, and the kind of the storytelling of like the mortals and all that kind of thing. But Yeah, I'm not going to remember a lot of this book except how much I disliked Hera. There are much better Greek retellings out there, Greek myth retellings, and I didn't feel this was feminist in any way whatsoever. And I kind of liked the end, but yeah, I don't know. This won't be staying. Unfortunately, I've decided now that there's only 2 of the Jennifer Saint books I'll be keeping, and I don't think I'll be buying any more. But there we go. So then we had Smoke Bitten. This is by Patricia Briggs. This is book 12 in the Mercy Thompson paranormal series that Patricia Briggs writes. You will know from previous reading vlogs that I am reading my way through. This is one of my favorite series of all time. It's one of my favorite paranormal series. Like, I just love this book. It may have been written, although she still brings books out every year, so the early books were written years ago, but I feel like they still stand up, a lot of them. I just love this. I love nearly every character in this book, and when I tell you that I read this in less than a day, I mean it. When I pick up a Patricia Briggs Mercy Thompson book, it is very hard for me to put it down. And I read 150 pages in one sitting, and all I was thinking about was I need to finish everything else I'm doing to get back to reading the next 150 pages and finishing the book. This got a 4. In this one, we are following Mercy, who is a mechanic in the Washington Tri-City area, the Columbia Basin. Yeah, so there's the map in it. And she is a mechanic. She is half indigenous, and so she can shift into coyote form. And we have the pack of werewolves that Mercy's kind of involved with, who are the Columbian Basin werewolves. And their alpha is Adam. And in this one, basically, there is a place called Underhill, which we've been, that's popped up in other books. And this is the place where originally the fairy realm used to be. And then something happened and Underhill closed her doors to the Fae. And the Fae are desperate to still get back there. But Underhill is not a lovely place. Underhill often becomes or represents herself as a young girl, and she likes to play games, and she has prisoners and artifacts and all this kind of thing. And basically Underhill decides to have a door in the werewolf's back garden. She just turns up one day and puts a door to Underhill in their back garden, and a prisoner escapes. And we don't know whether it escaped or whether Underhill left it to escape. That's part of the mystery. And this creature, this prisoner, is like smoke. And if it bites you, it can control you. And there is a theme throughout this. I clocked on, by the time we started talking about the creature and the mythology around it, I quickly understood who I thought it was going to be. And I was right at the end. And I have to say, out of all the creatures in fairy retellings or myths or stories, that is not the one that I would be the most scared of. It's kind of like, but it was very scary throughout most of the book. So anyway, that aside, Mercy and the werewolf pack are trying to track down this creature because it is doing a lot of harm in the area. And whilst this is going on, we also have the fact that Adam, the alpha, is dealing with something that is actually linked to the last book. And it means that his behaviour is not what it should be. And there's a lot of problems going on. And this is making Mercy very unsettled. And I didn't like to see Adam like that, which is why I didn't get a 5. Because I don't like seeing that. I don't like the stress. And also then we have this rogue werewolf pack that have moved in. And they're trying to take over the Tri-City area. They're trying to take down the original pack, Adam and his pack. And I just felt like that was one of the problems. There were too many stories going on. I felt like we didn't need one of them. We didn't need either the extra werewolf pack or the thing going on with Adam. I'm sure they're in there because it's going to be something that's going to crop up in later books. There's only 2 more left in this series. I am praying she brings out another book either this year. I think actually another book's meant to come out January next year. Only 2 more left. Very sad. But it's a 4 for me. I loved this book. It wasn't as dark as the last book, which I found very upsetting in certain places. It was tense. There's something that happens to 2 main characters in here where you really are on the edge of your seat wondering how it's going to play out. There's a lot going on for Mercy in her head, and some new interesting characters have been introduced. Yeah, it was a fun book. It's the Fae. I love reading about fairy tales, as I've said in this reading vlog, and all that kind of thing. So it's a really good book, and oh my gosh, I'm so excited for book 13. But I know I can't start it till I have time, because there is literally, except for the last book, March's book, which was stressful. Basically, when I pick up a Mercy Thompson, like I said, there's no way I am not going to read it. So then we get on to this one. You would have seen this one mentioned in a Marguerite Miller if you follow me there. This is the first in a new cozy mystery series called A Golden Girls Cozy Mystery. It is by Rachel Exstorm Courage, and it is Murder by Cheesecake. Now, guys, when I heard this was coming out, I had mixed feelings. I love the Golden Girls. I rewatch them. I rewatch the series at least once a year, and I rewatch their episodes weekly. I love the Golden Girls. So I really was torn. Do I pick this up? Because if it really doesn't represent the Golden Girls for me, then I am going to be very upset. But if it does, I'm going to be glad I picked it up. Hold on. Sorry, I was closing the curtain and get rid of the shadow again. So anyway, this is fun. Basically, we have Rose's cousin is getting married, and they're going to have their wedding in Miami, and Rose is in charge of it, and she's trying to work out all the St. Olaf traditions. Her cousin is marrying someone who's not from St. Olaf, and that man's family are very particular, and they've got a lot of money, and they want everything to do it their way, and they're trying to push Rose out of this. While we have this going on, Dorothy is trying to find a date for the wedding, and she's doing VHS dating for the first time. She meets this lovely guy, but he acts a bit weird, but she'd already invited him to the wedding. And then when they turn up for one of the events pre-wedding, one of the, what was it called? It was like a, I don't know, it was a cuppa tea with cheesecake or something. St. Olaf traditions, very unusual. They turn up to get the cheesecakes out, and bum bum bum, there's the person Dorothy had gone on a date with, face down in a cheesecake, and we go from there. Dorothy's obviously a prime suspect. This then means that Rose is trying to deal with the fact that everyone's going, oh my gosh, you're ruining the wedding, this murder's going on, your friend's involved. Rose is very stressed. Dorothy's trying to clear her name. And we go, yeah, we have that. And when I tell you this was like reading an episode of the Golden Girls, I loved this. I originally gave it a 4. I've moved it to a 3.75 because I have to be realistic. I gave it a 4 because this gave me such a nostalgic hug. I loved this. I know I'm going to reread this book. I have been longing to find something for the Golden Girls that I haven't seen, and I could see this playing out in my head as I was reading this book. I could hear the characters, I could see them, I could see the facial, I just knew what they would be doing. I would say that the author got 90% right for the characterization. The person she failed most on was Blanche. Blanche wasn't very fleshed out in this. She wasn't very Blanche. She wasn't saying a lot of what Blanche would say. So that was a bit of a letdown, that side. But there was still enough of Blanche that I felt that I could see it, you know. And the other characters, she got really well. She did really well. Again, about 90% of it would have been perfect. I did attempt the audiobook because I wanted to see, but that was just not going to work for me because obviously all the actresses are no longer with us, sadly, and I don't want to hear anyone else doing their voices. It's just that simple. I love this. It was silly. It was crazy. It was everything that a Golden Girls episode is. It really was. It was perfect for me, guys. I loved it so much. It brought me so much joy. I did move it down to 3.75. It's not the best written. There are some issues. There were things that I know that if it had been the original Golden Girls, Sophia would have said, but because they're not very correct now, and because it's in a cozy mystery, that's not used. And I was like, I know. I could hear it in my head what Sophia would have said. But I just loved it. I just really did. I can't say more than that. Was the mystery the most mysterious thing ever? No. Did I guess it straight away? Yes. Did that matter to me? Absolutely not. I just wanted the Golden Girls. And also at a month where I was really struggling with Crafty Mojo, to buy this book, I've never read from this author before, and then be so inspired by it that I had my first go at making my first bookmark. I made it on Canva, and you can see it's not quite the peachy colour, but I've got like the cheesecake top colour properly, got the flamingos and the palm leaves, and it's all laminated in this dark green tassel. To be so inspired not only to love the book but to want to actually make my own bookmark, I think that says a lot. I am hoping more books come out in this. I will also say it's not being packaged very well. Like, can you see where the white line is? The cover doesn't go all the way up to the edge of the pages. So I don't know who did that. But as a journal maker, that irritated me a little bit. It's a lovely floppy paperback because it's an American one, so the spine isn't broken, which is brilliant. And there is a cheesecake recipe in the back of here with lingonberry, which I'm going to be having a go at. And obviously, at some point, I was eating cheesecake while listening to this, reading this. This was another one that I read in one go. I mean, it just was that simple. I loved this book. I didn't want to put it down. It made me smile at the end. It's one of those books. If you're a reader, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's one of those books that when I finished it, I literally hugged it. I held it to me and just smiled. And that says a lot. I needed that. And so, yeah, I loved it. It's not the best written thing you'll ever read. It's not the greatest mystery you'll ever read. But if you love the Golden Girls and you've been craving a new episode, which will never happen, I say pick this up. And we are going to end with the final book. This was actually the first book I finished, I think, of the month. We are going to end with the final book. And this was my only 5-star of the whole month. This is book 4 in the Poirot Agatha Christie series. And this is The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. Now, guys, this is probably one of my favourite, not only Poirot novels, but Agatha Christie novels. I love this book so much. If you have never read this book, there are so many twists and turns and moments where you go, oh, like that. And also this has now become very famous as one of her most famous works. And also there's tropes in here that she introduced that at the time there was actually people like the public she got criticism for, because people were like, you can't put that in a book, but she did, and it works perfectly. So in this one we have Poirot has decided to retire. Hastings has moved to the Argentine with Dulcie, who he calls his Cinderella, who we met in a previous book. He's married her, he's moved to the Argentine, he's got a ranch, and Poirot has decided to retire. Considering there's like 40 books in the series or something, and this is only book 4, and he's moved to grow vegetable marrows. And his next door neighbour is the Dr. Shepherd, who lives with his sister Christine, I believe her name is. And at the start of this book, Dr. Shepherd has a friend, Roger Ackroyd, and Roger Ackroyd is murdered. And so Dr. Shepherd takes on the role of Hastings for Poirot. They don't even know who Poirot is. They don't realise. They just think it's this odd little guy next door. They think he's like a I don't know what they think he is, like a salesman or something who's retired. And he's this little guy next door. And so Dr. Shepherd's trying to work out what this is. And then Poirot gets pulled into it. And yeah, he becomes the Hastings for Poirot in this book. Poirot can investigate with him. He can bounce ideas off him. And obviously Dr. Shepherd knows this little area, this little village, the characters in it, the different players, the people. And so he's useful to Poirot in that way. And we go from there. They're trying to solve the murder of Roger Ackroyd and what happened. When I tell you, that I am on the hunt for a very, 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 very cheap battered copy of this book, because I now want to reread it and underline it. Agatha Christie is so clever. There are just one or two throwaway words or lines in this book that when you know the end, when you have read it, what you want to do is go straight back to the beginning and reread every line from the beginning. And none of one of her books that's like that is And Then There Are None. And I love this book so much. I wouldn't normally write in a book, but if it's a very old battered falling apart copy, I just want to underline those things. As someone who's read it several times, watched the adaptations of it on TV and everything else, I still, every time, I just get sucked into this. This was another read in one go. I did not put this down. I also had it on audiobook. So I had it on the audio, then I switched to the actual book when I had, I was doing something. And the audiobook's interesting because it's actually narrated by Hugh Fraser, who played Hastings in the 1990s Poirot series with David Suchet as Poirot, who, I'm sorry, but he will always be Poirot for me. I know Peter Ustinov and other people have done it, but David Suchet will always be Poirot. And so Hastings, the actor of Hastings, is narrating the audiobook, but he's not in it. So it took me a bit of time to kind of get my head around going, yeah, no, that's Dr. Shepherd, that's not Hastings. But anyway, still really good. So the audiobook I would recommend. But yeah, one sitting. The audiobook's very short anyway. It's only about 5 and a bit hours, and this book isn't that long. And yeah, I flew through this. I loved it. It was a great read for the month. Unfortunately, the rest of the month did not go as well. But oh my gosh, so much twists and turns in this book. She really is so clever at intrigue. I mean, yeah. So if you have not picked up a Poirot novel yet, I would definitely say pick this one up. Once again, Poirot hones in on one detail, and because he can't shake it, and everyone else is making fun of him like, oh gosh, there he goes, what's he on about that again for? What does it matter? Oh, silly little man. But that one detail makes the whole case fall into place for Poirot. I love this book so much. So there we go, guys. There were some real wins like this, and obviously the Patricia Briggs. There was some, yep, they were okay books like Old Rage and Stickleback and things like that. And Witchcraft for Wayward Girls was really good as well. And then guys, we had some really bad books such as The Grimm's Fairy Tale, Rewald Yourself, and now unfortunately a cozy mystery series that I won't be continuing with, and another one that really is in the balance of whether I will be continuing. But we need more of these. These have to come out. I need more of this series, and what I really hope is next time it's a different one of the 4 main characters. I would love it to be Blanche next, if I'm honest, because we had a lot of Rose and Dorothy in this one. I would really like a murder mystery. Maybe someone and gets killed at the Rusty Anchor or something like that. Oh, and that's what I didn't say about this book. See, I can't stop talking about it. If you are a Golden Girls fan, there are so many Easter eggs in this book. There are nods to so many of the episodes. And if you're a fan like me and know the episodes inside out, you will get so much joy. Sometimes it's a character's name, or they'll refer to something that there was a whole episode about. Oh my gosh, I loved it. So yeah, the Patricia Briggs, I mean, it's always going to be a winner for me. And Murder of Roger Ackroyd, best reads, followed up by Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. So anyway, guys, it was a bit of a strange month with this one. Yeah, hopefully you found some inspiration in some of these books. Thank you so much for watching. If you have watched, I would really like you to leave me a cheesecake emoji down below, please. If you have watched to the end, I really appreciate it if you have. Let me know if you've been inspired by any of these books. Just because I didn't enjoy something didn't mean that you guys won't enjoy it. Reading is very subjective. I'm hoping May's reads are better. So far, bit of a sneaky spoiler, it's not. It's not going much better so far in May. But anyway, guys, that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. As always, please do like, subscribe and comment if you haven't done so already. And yet, pick this book up. I'm hoping the more people who read it, the more chance we'll get more series. Yeah, I just want another one so desperately. And I'll be back again soon for another video. And obviously I'll be back later on, hopefully at the start of June, with my May reading wrap up. And I just want to say a big thank you to all of these all of you who are being so encouraging with these videos. They aren't the most watched, they aren't the most kind of commented on or anything like that, but those of you who are enjoying them, I appreciate every single one of you that watches and that comments as well. It means a lot to me, and it just goes to show that you know, whilst not everyone is watching them, those of you that are enjoying them. So thank you so much. It encourages me to keep sharing my reading with you all. Anyway, guys, I'll be back again with another video soon. Until then, wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having lots and lots of bookish fun. Bye for now.